Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Your deposits will be there when you need them.
And it's important to understand something. So all of these banks over the last several years have accumulated with the deposits that they received since the president was able to remove all of the reserve requirements during the pandemic to zero. So most of these banks have virtually nothing in the way of currency on hand. And because they would take these deposits that came in from the depositors, and they would buy bonds with them, typically treasuries, and in many cases mortgage-backed securities, at rates above what they were paying, of course, to the depositors, but in what was typically considered safe places to be. The problem is all of those bonds have an average maturity or an average yield rather of about 2 to 2.5% and long maturities. And so the problem is that since interest rates have risen closer to 5%, every one of those bonds in their portfolio have lost 50% or more of their value. Now, the banking regulations say that they don't have to mark those to market until they sell them. And so they have a whole balance sheet filled with toxic assets that have lost over half their value or more. So in the case of SVC, when you saw a run on the bank, for whatever reason, you get people running on the bank because there's so little cash, the reserve requirements have been slashed to nothing. These banks are forced to sell their bonds at a huge loss in order to meet customer demands to get their money back. Then, as we saw last week, a large bank can become insolvent in less than 24 hours. And that's exactly what happened. The FDIC can't handle this. Their insurance fund is only 0.03% of bank deposits, 0.03%, roughly 125 billion in FDIC liquidity backing over $9.5 trillion in deposits.
Will the deposits in every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of their size, be fully insured now? Are they fully recovered? Every bank, every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of the size of the deposit, will they get the same treatment that SVB just got or Signature Bank just got?
A bank only gets that treatment if a majority of the FDIC board, a supermajority of the Fed board, and I, in consultation with the president, determine that the failure to protect uninsured depositors would create systemic risk.
So what is your plan to keep large depositors from moving their funds out of community banks into the big banks? We have seen the mergers of banks over the past decade. I'm concerned you're about to accelerate that by encouraging anyone who has a large deposit in a community bank to say, we're not going to make you whole, but if you go to one of our preferred banks, we will make you whole at that point.
Look, I mean, that's certainly not something that we're encouraging.
That is happening right now.
That is happening because depositors are concerned about the bank failures that have happened and whether or not other banks could also
No,
fail.
it's happening because you're fully insured no matter what the amount is. If you're in a big bank, you're not fully insured if you're in a community bank.
Well, you're not fully insured.